Dramily.com, unlimited drama series.
The notification sound from Jenna's phone cut through the midnight silence like a knife. I stared at the ceiling of our bedroom, listening to her soft breathing beside me, and felt that familiar knot in my stomach tighten. 3 months of late work nights at the advertising agency. 3 months of cold shoulders and excuses. I'm Alex Denver, 39 years old, and apparently the biggest fool in upstate New York. The phone buzzed again, then again. I turned my head slightly. Jenna was dead asleep, probably exhausted from whatever she'd been doing until 11:30. The blue glow of her iPhone lit up the nightstand like a beacon of betrayal. My military training kicked in. Reconnaissance first, action second. I slipped out of bed with the silence of someone who'd spent 6 years in Army logistics, learning to move equipment and information without making a sound. Funny how those skills transfer to civilian life in ways they never mention in the recruitment brochures. The phone screen showed 17 missed messages, all from CH. I knew exactly who CH was. Clay Hartford, 42, real estate developer. The kind of guy who wore $1,000 suits to Little League games and called everyone sport. He'd been sniffing around Jenna at company parties for months, complimenting her creative vision and offering unsolicited business advice. My thumb hovered over the screen. Jenna's passcode was our anniversary. How's that for irony? The messages opened like a roadmap to hell. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Same place, same time. Tell Alex you're working late again. He never questions it anyway. You're incredible. I can't believe you wasted so many years with that loser. The words hit me like physical blows, but I kept reading. There were photos, videos, detailed descriptions of what they'd been doing in Clay's downtown condo, while I microwaved leftover Chinese food and watched Netflix alone. The final message, sent 20 minutes ago. Your husband called 3 times tonight. Getting suspicious? Maybe it's time to put him out of his misery and file for divorce. You deserve better than a middle management nobody. I set the phone down carefully, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. 22 years together, 15 years of marriage, reduced to middle management nobody by a man who was screwing my wife in his glass tower while I paid the mortgage on the house where she slept. But here's the thing about military logistics. You learn to think strategically, not emotionally. You assess the situation, identify your resources, and execute a plan that achieves maximum impact with minimum exposure. I wasn't angry anymore. I was operational. I grabbed my laptop from the home office and settled into the kitchen, making coffee with the quiet efficiency of someone who'd just declared war. First step, intelligence gathering. Jenna's work laptop was on the counter, still logged in from her late-night presentation prep. Her email history read like a masterclass in deception. Fake client meetings, fictional deadlines, elaborate lies about weekend conferences that were actually romantic getaways. She'd been covering her tracks for months, but she'd gotten sloppy, overconfident. Clay Hartford owned 3 properties in the city and had been married twice before. Both ex-wives had cited infidelity in their divorce filings. He was a serial cheater who collected other men's wives like trophies, and Jenna was just his latest conquest. I opened a new browser window and started researching New York divorce law, community property, adultery clauses, documentation requirements. By 3 a.m., I had a complete strategy mapped out. My phone buzzed. Tom Reeves, my old Army buddy turned private investigator, was apparently pulling another all-nighter. You awake? His text read. Unfortunately, need a favor. Professional or personal? Both. Can you meet me tomorrow? Sure. Everything okay? I looked at Jenna's phone, still glowing with Clay's messages, then at the sleeping woman who'd spent the evening lying to my face before coming home to our bed. Everything's about to be perfect, I typed back. I spent the next 2 hours documenting everything. Screenshots, email forwards, a detailed timeline of Jenna's lies. I created a secure folder on my personal cloud storage and uploaded it all, then cleared the browser history and returned her laptop to exactly where I'd found it. At 5:30, Jenna's alarm went off. She rolled over with that fake sleepy smile she'd been using for months. Morning, honey, you're up early. Couldn't sleep, I said, which was absolutely true. Big day ahead. She stretched, and I watched her perform the same routine she'd been doing for years, checking her phone, frowning at some imaginary work crisis, building the foundation for another day of lies. I might be late again tonight, she said, not even looking at me. The Morrison account is killing us. The Morrison account had been completed 2 weeks ago. I'd seen the final presentation files on her laptop. "No problem," I said. "Take all the time you need." She kissed my cheek, a quick, perfunctory peck that felt like a slap, and headed for the shower. I listened to the water running and made a mental note. This was the last morning we'd ever share. By the time she left for work, I was already dressed and ready to begin the systematic destruction of Clay Hartford and the woman who used to be my wife. Tom Reeves looked exactly like what he was, a former Army sergeant who'd traded his uniform for a leather jacket and a license to investigate cheating spouses. We met at Murphy's Diner, a greasy spoon downtown, where the coffee was strong and the conversations were private. "You look like hell," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Feel worse. I need your professional services." I slid a manila envelope across the table. Tom opened it, scanned the contents, and let out a low whistle. "Clay Hartford. I know this guy. Investigated him 2 years ago for his second ex-wife. He's got a type, married women, preferably with something to lose." "What did you find?" "Enough to cost him half his assets and his reputation with the country club crowd." "Guy's a predator, Alex. He gets off on the destruction as much as the sex." The waitress refilled our coffee cups. I waited until she was out of earshot before continuing. "I need everything you can find on him. Financial records, business dealings, personal habits. And I need it fast." "How fast?" 48 hours. Tom leaned back, studying my face. "What are you planning?" "Total war." "Alex, listen to me. I've seen guys go down this road before. It never ends the way you think it will. This isn't about revenge, Tom. This is about justice. Jenna wants to destroy our marriage for a serial cheater who sees her as a disposable toy. I'm just going to speed up the process and make sure she understands exactly what she's choosing." Tom nodded slowly. "Okay, but we do this clean. No illegal surveillance, no planted evidence, nothing that can blow back on you in court." "Agreed. I want them destroyed, not arrested." We shook hands, and Tom pocketed the envelope. "I'll call you tomorrow night." My next stop was the bank. Our joint checking account held $43,000, money we'd saved for the European vacation Jenna had been promising to plan for 3 years. I withdrew half, exactly to the penny, and opened a new account in my name only. Legally bulletproof, morally justified. The storage unit rental took 20 minutes. Climate-controlled, 24-hour access. Paid 6 months in advance. I drove home and started packing. 15 years of marriage generates a lot of stuff. Photo albums, wedding gifts, furniture we'd picked out together during happier times. I packed it all with military precision, labeling boxes and creating an inventory list. Not stealing, relocating. Everything would be documented for the divorce proceedings. Mrs. Kresge, our 70-year-old neighbor, watched from her front porch as I loaded the moving truck I'd rented. "Spring cleaning, Alex?" "Something like that, Mrs. K. Something like that." By 4 p.m., the house looked like a crime scene. Empty rooms, bare walls, rectangles of unfaded paint where pictures used to hang. I left Jenna's personal belongings untouched, her clothes, jewelry, cosmetics, but everything else, every shared memory and joint purchase, went into storage. The divorce papers were waiting on the kitchen counter when she got home at 11:45 p.m. I was sitting in the one remaining chair, a folding lawn chair I'd grabbed from the garage. "What the hell is this?" she screamed, looking around the empty living room. "This is honesty," I said calmly. "You wanted freedom from your middle management nobody husband. Congratulations, you're free." Her face went through a fascinating series of expressions: shock, anger, calculation, and finally fear. "Alex, we need to talk. I can explain." "No need." Clay already explained everything in his text messages. Very detailed explanations, actually. I particularly enjoyed the part where he called me a loser who never questions your lies. The color drained from her face. "You went through my phone? Your phone went through our marriage. I just documented the damage." She tried tears next, real ones, which surprised me. Maybe she actually felt something after all. "Please, Alex, it's not what you think. Clay means nothing to me. It was just what? Just sex? Just lies? Just 15 years of marriage flushed down the toilet for a real estate developer who's already planning to dump you for his next conquest? I stood up and handed her a manila envelope. Divorce papers. I'm filing for adultery, which means you get nothing beyond what the law requires. I've documented everything, Jenna. Every lie, every fake work meeting, every hotel receipt you thought I'd never see. She opened the envelope with shaking hands. You can't do this. This house is half mine. Our savings were half yours. I withdrew my half this morning. The house is in both our names, so we'll split it according to New York law. Everything else, the furniture, the wedding gifts, the life we built together, that's all in storage until the lawyers sort it out. Where am I supposed to sleep tonight? I hear Clay's condo has a very comfortable bed. You should know. You've been testing it for 3 months. I walked toward the door, then turned back for one final observation. By the way, I called your father this afternoon, told him everything. He's expecting your call. The sound she made was somewhere between a sob and a scream. I closed the door behind me and didn't look back. My phone rang at 6 a.m. Jenna's father, Robert Chen, had always been more of a father to me than my own dad ever was. His voice was cold steel. Alex, I'm sorry. I'm ashamed of my daughter. It's not your fault, Bob. I raised her better than this. What do you need from me? Just the truth, if it comes to that. I'm not looking for revenge. I just want her to face the consequences of her choices. You'll have it. And Alex, you're a better man than she deserves. Tom called an hour later. I've got your intel. Meet me at Murphy's in 20 minutes. The dossier he handed me was comprehensive. Clay Hartford wasn't just a serial cheater. He was also a serial financial manipulator. 3 business partnerships dissolved under suspicious circumstances. 2 tax liens from the IRS. A pattern of using personal relationships to gain inside information on real estate deals. Here's the interesting part, Tom said, pointing to a bank statement. He's been spending way beyond his means. That flashy lifestyle, it's all leveraged. He's about 6 months away from bankruptcy if his current development deal falls through. What development deal? Riverside Commons, $50 million mixed-use project downtown. He's the lead developer, but he's only got about 30% of the financing secured. If his investors get spooked, I studied the financial records. Clay's entire empire was built on perception and credit. Take away the perception, and the credit would disappear. I need you to do something that might feel unethical, I told Tom. I'm listening. Clay's been using his relationship with Jenna to get inside information about her advertising agency's clients. She's been feeding him details about upcoming campaigns, helping him time his real estate investments. It's not illegal, but it's definitely unethical. Tom nodded. And if that information reached the right people, his business partners might start asking uncomfortable questions about his information sources. I can make some calls. Strictly factual, nothing fabricated. Do it. My next stop was Jenna's office. I'd been to the Madison Avenue advertising agency dozens of times over the years, knew the layout and most of the staff. Sarah Williams, Jenna's best friend and the company's HR director, was having lunch alone in the break room. Alex, what are you doing here? Looking for my wife. Is she in? Sarah's expression shifted slightly. She knew something. She's in a meeting. Can I take a message? Sure. Tell her I stopped by to return her wedding ring. She left it on the nightstand this morning. I placed the small velvet box on the table between us. Sarah stared at it like it might explode. Alex, what's going on? Ask Jenna. Better yet, ask her about Clay Hartford. Sarah's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. You've been covering for her for months, haven't you? The fake client meetings, the imaginary deadlines. How does it feel to be an accessory to adultery, Sarah? I left her sitting there with the ring box and walked out. By evening, the entire office would know that Alex Denver had filed for divorce and why. My phone buzzed with a text from Jenna. We need to talk, please, I replied. Talk to your lawyer. 3 hours later, Tom called with an update. Clay's business partners are asking questions. Apparently, someone tipped them off about his unusual success rate with real estate timing. They're demanding an audit of his information sources. How long before they figure out the connection to Jenna? Maybe a week. Maybe less if they're motivated. They'll be motivated. Clay's been using their money to fund his lifestyle while feeding them insider information from his girlfriend's advertising agency. When they realize he's been playing them, his financing disappears, and the whole house of cards comes down. Ugh, exactly. Ugh. That night, I sat in my empty house and waited. At 11 p.m., I heard a car in the driveway. Jenna's key turned in the lock, and she walked into the living room, carrying a bottle of wine and wearing the black dress I'd bought her for our anniversary. "Oh, I brought your favorite wine," she said, setting the bottle on the floor, since there was no table left. "Ugh, I don't drink anymore." "Since when?" "Ugh, Since I realized I was married to a stranger." She sat on the floor across from me, the empty room echoing with 15 years of broken promises. "Alex, please, let me explain."
Intimate text intro, another weather dummy.
Watch more on Grammarly.com.
Clay means nothing to me. It was just, I felt trapped, like we were roommates instead of lovers. I needed to feel desired again. "So you destroyed our marriage to feel desired by a man who's about to lose everything he owns?" Her perfectly composed expression cracked slightly. "What do you mean?" "Clay's broke, Jenna. Leveraged to the eyeballs and about 6 months from bankruptcy. His business partners are starting to ask questions about where he gets his inside information. When they figure out he's been using you." "You're lying." "Am I?" "Call him. Ask him about the Riverside Commons project. Ask him about the IRS liens. Ask him about his ex-wives and why they both ended up with nothing." She pulled out her phone with shaking hands. I watched her face as she read whatever Clay was telling her. The color drained from her cheeks. "He says you're trying to sabotage him." "I don't need to sabotage him, Jenna. He's been sabotaging himself for years. You're just the latest casualty." She stood up, smoothing her dress with hands that weren't quite steady. "I'm not giving up on us, Alex. We can work through this. There is no us. There's you, there's Clay, and there's me. You made your choice 3 months ago. I choose you. I'm choosing you now." I looked at this woman I'd loved for half my adult life, seeing clearly for the first time in years. "Too late," I said. "I'm done being chosen last." The next morning brought chaos. Jenna's phone was ringing constantly. Her father, her sister, friends who'd heard about the divorce through Sarah's office gossip network. I watched her handle call after call, spinning increasingly desperate explanations. "It's just a misunderstanding," she told her sister. "Alex is having some kind of midlife crisis." But her father wasn't buying it. I could hear his voice through the phone, sharp and disappointed. When she hung up, she was crying. "My dad won't even talk to me." "Good. At least one person in your family has integrity." She whirled around, anger replacing tears. "You turned him against me. I told him the truth. You turned him against yourself." My phone buzzed. "Tom, with another update. Clay's partners pulled their financing this morning. The Riverside Commons project is dead. He's got about 72 hours before his creditors start circling." I looked at Jenna, who was frantically texting someone, probably Clay. "How long before he throws her under the bus?" I asked. "Guys like Clay, the second things get uncomfortable. He'll blame her for everything, say she seduced him, fed him false information, whatever it takes to save his own skin. And when that happens, she'll be unemployed, divorced, and radioactive. No one in this town will touch her professionally or personally." It was almost too perfect. Almost. That afternoon, I was loading more boxes into my truck when a black Mercedes pulled into the driveway. Clay Hartford stepped out, looking every inch the successful developer in his tailored suit and Italian shoes. He was bigger than I'd expected. 6'2", probably worked out religiously. The kind of guy who used his physical presence to intimidate smaller men. "You must be Alex, and you must be the homewrecker. Congratulations on destroying a 15-year marriage for 3 months of sex." His smile was all teeth and no warmth. "Jenna's a grown woman. She made her own choices, and you made yours. How's the Riverside Commons project going, by the way?" The smile faltered slightly. "That's none of your business. You're right, just like my wife was none of yours." He stepped closer, trying to use his height advantage. Military training kicked in. I shifted my weight, balanced on the balls of my feet, hands loose at my sides. Clay might have been bigger, but I'd been trained to fight by professionals. "Look, sport, I'm trying to be reasonable here. Jenna and I are in love. You can make this easy or hard, but either way, she's coming with me." "Is she? Have you told her about your financial situation? About the fact that you're about to lose everything? About your pattern of dumping women the second they become inconvenient?" His face darkened. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I also know that you've been using information from Jenna's job to time your real estate investments. When your ex-partners figure that out, they're going to be very unhappy. Rich men don't like being played, Clay. He grabbed my shirt with both hands, pulling me close enough to smell his expensive cologne. You think you're smart, you little nobody? You think you can threaten me? I didn't resist, didn't fight back, just looked him in the eyes and smiled. I don't need to threaten you, Clay. You're doing a fine job of destroying yourself. I'm just documenting the process. He followed my gaze to Mrs. Kresge's front porch, where she was sitting with her phone pointed directly at us, recording everything. Clay released me and stepped back, suddenly aware that he'd just committed assault on camera. This isn't over, he said. You're right. It's just getting started. He drove away with enough tire smoke to announce his departure to the entire neighborhood. Mrs. Kresge waved at me with her free hand, still recording with her phone. Got it all, dear. Should I send this to anyone? Save it for now, Mrs. K. We might need it later. That evening, Jenna came home with red eyes and shaking hands. Clay's in trouble, she said. His business is falling apart. He thinks you're sabotaging him. I'm not sabotaging anyone. I'm just letting the truth do what truth does. He wants me to quit my job and move in with him. Are you going to? She looked around the empty house, at the life we'd built together, that was now packed away in cardboard boxes. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. Here's what I know, I said. Clay Hartford is a serial cheater who's about to lose everything he owns. He's going to blame you for his problems, throw you away like he did his ex-wives, and move on to his next victim. And when that happens, you'll be alone, unemployed, and radioactive in this town. You sound like you're looking forward to it. I considered that. Was I looking forward to her destruction? Or was I just tired of being the only one who cared about the consequences of our choices? I'm looking forward to being free, I said finally. Free from lies, free from betrayal, free from wondering who my wife really is. She started crying again, but this time I didn't comfort her. This time, I just walked away. The confrontation I'd been expecting came 3 days later at Murphy's Diner. I was having breakfast when Sarah Williams and 2 other women from Jenna's office walked in. They spotted me immediately and marched over to my booth like an angry delegation. We need to talk, Sarah said, sliding in across from me. Her companions, Kelly from accounting and Michelle from creative, flanked me on both sides. Ladies, to what do I owe the pleasure? You're destroying Jenna's life, Kelly said. She's a mess. She can barely function at work. Jenna destroyed her own life. I'm just refusing to clean up the mess this time. She made a mistake, Michelle added. People make mistakes. That doesn't mean you have to be cruel about it. I set down my coffee cup and looked at each of them in turn. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk at the store. A mistake is double booking a dinner reservation. 3 months of systematic lying, cheating, and betrayal isn't a mistake. It's a choice. A series of choices. She loves you, Sarah insisted. She's always loved you. She loved the security I provided. She loved having someone to pay the bills while she played house with Clay Hartford. But love? Real love? No. You don't destroy someone you love. The diner had gone quiet around us. Other customers were pretending not to listen while hanging on every word. Clay's using her, Kelly said. We all know that. But instead of protecting her, you're feeding her to the wolves. I protected her for 15 years. I believed her lies, ignored the red flags, made excuses for her behavior. And what did that get me? A wife who called me a loser to her boyfriend while planning our divorce behind my back. I pulled out my phone and opened the screenshots I'd saved from Jenna's messages. Would you like to see what she really thinks of me? What she told Clay about our marriage? About our sex life? About how pathetic she thinks I am? Sarah's face went pale. Alex, don't. He's so boring, I read aloud. No ambition, no passion, no idea how to satisfy a woman. I feel like I'm married to a piece of furniture. The words hung in the air like a toxic cloud. I could see the other customers straining to hear, could feel the weight of public judgment shifting. She said that about you? Michelle whispered. She said a lot of things. Want to hear more? Alex is so predictable. He'll never leave me because he's too scared to be alone. I can do whatever I want and he'll just take it like he always does. Sarah was crying now. She was angry. She didn't mean it. She meant every word. And you know what? She was right. I was predictable. I was scared. I did take it like I always did, but not anymore. I stood up and threw a 20 on the table. Tell Jenna the first said goodbye. Tell her she was right about everything except one thing. I'm not too scared to be alone. I'm too smart to stay with someone who thinks I'm furniture. I walked out of the diner, leaving the three women sitting in stunned silence. By noon, the entire story would be all over town. By evening, everyone would know exactly what Jenna Denver thought of her husband and her marriage. My phone rang as I was driving home. Tom, with the news I'd been expecting. Clay's officially broke. His creditors filed papers this morning. He's got maybe a week before they start seizing assets. What about Jenna? Word is, he's blaming her for everything. Told his lawyers she seduced him and fed him false information to manipulate his investments. He's claiming she's a corporate spy who destroyed his business. And her job. HR called her in for a meeting this afternoon. Apparently, someone leaked information about her relationship with Clay and the potential corporate espionage angle. Even if they can't prove anything, she's radioactive now. I felt a moment of something that might have been sympathy. Then I remembered the messages, the lies, the casual cruelty of her words about our marriage. What happens now? Now they both fall. Clay loses everything and probably leaves town. Jenna loses her job, her reputation, and her meal ticket, and you and I start over. You sure about this, Alex? Once it's done, it's done. No going back. I thought about 15 years of marriage, about the woman I'd loved who'd never really existed, about the life I'd built with someone who saw me as furniture, I'm sure. That evening, I was packing the last of my personal belongings when Jenna came home. She looked like she'd aged 5 years and 5 days, hollow eyes, trembling hands, the kind of exhaustion that comes from watching your entire world collapse. They fired me, she said quietly. I heard. Clay won't return my calls. I'm not surprised. She sat on the floor in the empty living room, surrounded by the echoes of our former life. I have nothing left. You have your freedom. Isn't that what you wanted? I wanted to feel alive again. I wanted to matter to someone. You mattered to me for 15 years. That wasn't enough. She looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. Can you ever forgive me? I considered the question seriously. Could I forgive her? Maybe, someday. But forgiveness didn't mean reconciliation. Forgiveness didn't mean pretending the last 3 months hadn't happened. I might forgive you eventually, I said, but I'll never trust you again. And without trust, there's nothing left to save. I picked up my last box and headed for the door. Where will you go? She asked. Forward, I said. Just forward. 2 weeks later, I was loading the last boxes from the storage unit when Clay Hartford appeared. He looked like a different man, unshaven, wearing jeans and a wrinkled shirt instead of his usual designer suits. The Mercedes was gone, replaced by a beat-up Honda Civic. We need to talk, he said. No, we don't. This is all your fault. You destroyed my business, ruined my reputation, turned everyone against me. I set down the box I was carrying and looked at him. Really looked. This was the man my wife had chosen over me. This was the prize she'd thrown away 15 years of marriage to win. I didn't destroy anything, Clay. I just stopped pretending not to see what was already there. You sabotaged me. You fed information to my partners, turned them against me. I told them the truth about your information sources. What they did with that truth was their choice. He stepped closer, and I could smell alcohol on his breath. Day drinking. Another bad sign. You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you won? I think I survived. There's a difference. Jenna never loved you. She told me everything. How boring you were, how you never satisfied her, how she was planning to leave you anyway. The words were meant to hurt, but they just bounced off. I'd already heard them, already processed them, already moved past them. If that's true, then I did her a favor. Now she's free to find someone who appreciates her unique qualities. She's broke, living with her sister, working at a coffee shop. Is that what you wanted? I wanted honesty. I wanted consequences. I wanted the fantasy to end so reality could begin. Clay's face darkened. You destroyed both our lives for what? Revenge? Justice? There's a difference. He swung at me then, a clumsy, drunken punch that I saw coming from a mile away. I sidestepped easily, and he stumbled into the storage unit door. Feel better? I asked. He tried again, this time grabbing for my shirt. I caught his wrist, applied pressure to a nerve cluster I'd learned in basic training, and watched him drop to his knees. Here's some free advice, Clay. Leave town. Start over somewhere else. Find a single woman next time, someone who's actually available for your particular brand of romance. I released his wrist, and he fell backward, cradling his hand. This isn't over, he gasped. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. I loaded the last box into my truck and drove away, leaving Clay Hartford sitting in the parking lot of a storage facility, surrounded by the wreckage of his own choices. The moving truck was already at my new apartment across town when I arrived. 1 bedroom, modern kitchen, view of the river. A fresh start in a place with no memories, no ghosts, no echoes of broken promises. Tom helped me unload, and we celebrated with beer and pizza on my empty living room floor. Any regrets? He asked. I considered the question. Did I regret?